Hey, Talking Joe fans. Mark here, and welcome to a special edition of Talking Joe, where we will be talking to Mr. Skeletron himself, Ben Conway, the evil genius behind the Roboskull MkII project, currently blazing a trail on Kickstarter. And specifically, we will be doing a deep dive looking at the beautiful artwork promoting the project that was commissioned from the artist Ian Kennedy, 89-year-old veteran of British comics and painting master. Strangely enough, my worlds collided earlier last year when Ben reached out to me in respect to my other hat that I sometimes wear, which is as Ian's art rep, which is a fancy term for me helping organize his commission list. And little did he know that I was a massive Action Force fan, and of course was blown away by the concepts that he was presenting to Ian for him to get involved in the project. This show was originally recorded with video and visuals, so it is a relatively visual episode. You can head on over to the YouTube channel to see our mugs and the art that is being presented on screen. But I think you can still take an awful lot away from this episode, even without those visuals. Maybe just make sure that you've checked out Ian's beautiful Roboskull piece first. Let's get started. Here we go.
Live from the Talking Joe studios. It's Talking Joe.
You seem normal. Hey, it's me, Mark, and hello to you, the Talking Joe viewers and potentially even listeners. Got a very special show today. We're going to be talking to Ben Conway, the evil genius behind the Roboskull project that's hammering it out on Kickstarter as we speak, and the man behind the box art that we can see on screen, the legend that is Ian Kennedy. So without too much further ado, I will stick them both on screen. Here we go. It's Ben.
Hey.
And it is Ian. Welcome, Ian. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you, Mark. It's a pleasure.
So where are we finding... Let's start with Ben first. Where are we finding you today?
I'm at home. I'm working from home today, so I'm sequestered away from where I have been working in the bedroom, so we can have a nice, quiet conversation. and then I'll be right back to Roboskulling. So that's as soon as we're done here. It's been nothing but Roboskull nonstop.
And Ian, where can we find you today?
You're finding me at home as usual, in what my wife calls studio number 2, which is my bedroom.
Okay.
Number 1 studio is so absolutely chock full of this, that, the next thing that anything apart from that, like this particular situation, it has to take place in what we call studio number 2.
Excellent.
Bit of a family. From studio number 2. And of course, I'm also in the U.S., which is a distinctive geographic difference between me and you two.
Yeah. So early evening, well, midish evening for us, and early afternoon for you as we record. So we've been gathered here today to talk about specifically Ian's work for the Roboskull project. So let me stick that back up on screen as a bit of a visual prompt. So we've got a tease of the final image there on the right. But before we get to that, here's a little painting, a self-portrait of Ian with two of the characters that he's best known for, Dandare and the Mekon from the pages of New Eagle. there. So Ian, best known, of course, for his work on various boys comics, starting back in, Ian, can you remind me of the year that you kickstarted your career?
The year I kickstarted, I suppose, is 1949.
Excellent. And you've been
1949, and I've been at it ever since.
blazing your own trail ever since.
Yeah.
It's an astonishing body of work. Most sort of notably on on the Commando covers, on Dan Dare in the pages of the Eagle. And if you are a British boy in the sort of 70s and 80s and being given an annual at Christmas, there's a fair chance that Ian's work graced the front cover. And we're talking about sort of connection to Action Force today. And remarkably, until this point, I don't think Ian has sort of professionally worked on Action Force per se, but very tangentially has come very, very close to it, because Ian, you did a fair amount of work in the pages of Battle. So notably, some very memorable covers, such as the ones we've got up on the screen at the moment. But never on actually in the pages of Battle Action Force as it became with the Action Force strip. Tangentially as well, sort of you in terms of toy properties, you've been involved in a few over the years as well.
Over the years. Yes, over the years, from time to time, the toy manufacturers got in touch with us, looking for perhaps box designs for their boxes or their catalogues.
Because I can remember offhand, I can remember that Scalextrics you did quite a lot of work for, and did that amazing selection of catalogue images. It was practically an art book focused just on your art, wasn't it, Ian? And there was Ring Raiders, which became a comic, which you did some of the covers on, I think, interiors for. You had some involvement in the UK adaptation weekly comic on Mask. You were recently asked to do a commission for the Rhino. Is there anything else that I'm forgetting, Ian, that you've had involved with in the toy world?
I'm desperately trying to think of. There was Speedmaster, wasn't there, if I remember rightly?
Yeah, Speedmaster was like a superhero kind of created for Scalextrics, wasn't it?
Yes. There are various things over the years. It's rather difficult for me to remember them all. They were the regular work went on, of course, in the meantime, but from time to time these extras would slip into the schedule.
And we've got on the screen Battle. I guess that was published by IPC, which was somewhat of a rival of your main bread and butter, DC Thompson publishing Commando. Did it feel like there was a rivalry there? Were you given a completely allowed to just get on and work wherever you liked?
Basically, no, there was no real feeling, as far as I personally was concerned, no feeling of rivalry. I worked for DC Thompson's in their art department for 5 years after leaving school, and it was by far the best thing that could have happened, in that I basically served an apprenticeship, sitting amongst extremely talented and experienced artists, and I just picked up all the tips I could. I copied and copied and copied, because that is advice I give to all young aspiring illustrators and artists is that there's no harm, there's no shame in copying, especially if you see a particular artist's his style, his or her style, copy it, because eventually your own style will come through. It will come through. And of course, in their work, of course, they have solved an awful lot of problems. So what's the point of you going through tackling these problems again when they've already been solved by your predecessor? Why not just copy what they've done?
And with those images on screen, do you remember much of your time working on Battle, like with the likes of Johnny Red?
Not an awful lot, to be quite honest, because it was all happening during the time that I tend to term the golden times of British comics. In that there was so much, as you know, there was so much work to be done, and I had such a variety of work required, and it was, I would really have to go back and check my account books, which of course we want us to keep for tax purposes, etc., in order to get some sort of idea just when and where and how, which particular publication I was working for at that time.
And as the master of boys comics, which I'll call you now, I hope you'll accept that accolade. It does feel like we kind of somehow missed you working on the Action Force property during that heyday around about 82, 83, when the Battle Action Force comic was coming out. I do wonder if your name did come across the editor's board, and whether they did approach you at that time. Obviously, it's a long, almost 40 years ago. So I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you to remember if you think you might have been approached.
Yes, at around that time, you're actually you are jogging my memory a little. In that around about that time, 1980. I had a rather serious car accident, and I was out of action for quite some time, and that was just about the time that New Eagle
of course
made its appearance, and Barry Tomlinson, who was in charge of that project, he was looking around for an art. They had started, but I'm afraid they were having all sorts of problems with artists not delivering on time, etc., with all sorts of silly excuses like, I left the roll of stuff on the train, things like that. So he was rather desperate, and he knew, of course, that I was recovering, and would I like to take Dan Dare on? And I was just at the point where I felt that I could get my pens and brushes out again, and get on with some productive work. So I just grabbed the chance there and then.
And and from then on, you've not stopped since, I think. So, there's a page from Dan Dare, sort of, one sort of really kind of showing the kind of explosive space action and really dynamic colors.
That one is actually one of the covers done at that time. We started off, actually, I can't remember why, but I was just doing center spreads. Center spread, which was fine, no problem there in meeting deadlines, etc. And then they decided to increase it to the cover on the center spread, And what you have in front there is one of the covers. So I did full color cover, full color center spread. And then in their wisdom, they decided that they would put it on the back page as well, full color. That was when I'm afraid I had to say, hold on a second, I can only, there are only so many hours in the day. And I was never the fastest worker. And the one thing that I've always felt instinctively is that if I take on too much, then the one thing that will suffer inevitably is quality. So I had to, at that point, say, no, I'm afraid I can't take that on. So we ended up, I would do a full color cover, and then I would do the center spread black and white, detailed black and white, and the back cover detailed black and white, which was then colored in by, as I recall, John Burns, who did a remarkably good job in imitating my style.
Yeah, indeed, very good.
The
So
quality,
also
the quality's certainly there, Ian. I mean, look at that. I mean, look at those images. It's unbelievable. Those are the images that came up for me right away when I started thinking about, who we wanted to do the packaging art for the project, and it was immediately you. There was nobody else that was in contention. So I was so glad that this has worked out.
At that time, of course, as you probably recall, that was around the time that NASA was in full flow and the moonshots, etc., were all taking place, and we were inundated with films and clips, shots of the equipment, etc. So of course, it just couldn't go wrong. I just kept on collecting as much of that material as possible and incorporating it into what you in front of you.
So for you, Ben, I guess you weren't one of those boys who were getting Ian's covers on the front of an annual in your stocking at Christmas. Growing up in the States. So
sadly not. Yeah.
So how did you find out about Ian's work? So what was the process for connecting the dots between realizing that you wanted to have an incredible image made for your project and Ian's name being the name for you?
Yeah, so when I was growing up in the 80s, the packaging art was a really big deal to me. When I saw it in the store as a small, as a kid, that's what really drew me in, and then that was the hook, right? It was this beautiful packaging art, and it was Hector Garrido here in the United States for GI Joe, who was just an absolute master, and he's since passed away. And I was wanting that feel, right, just of the beautiful rich colors, masterful paintings, right, that I grew up with on packaging, when that resonated with me on the packaging when I was a kid. And that's we're all here big kids buying toys, I think, because of that nostalgia and that feel, right? So that was sort of what I want. It's like, that's what I want. So how do I achieve that? And so looking around, I really wanted to, given the homage, and given that we're working with Bob Breakin, and I really wanted to tie back to all you guys in the UK, because here I am, I'm making something that's all new, but that obviously is inspired by everything that happened in the 80s, a lot of things that happened in the 80s over in the UK, right? So I really started the search with who would be a good fit from the UK. That was where it started, and I immediately, it's Ian Kennedy. And that was that my list was one, is honestly, and I was like, that's, as soon as I started my search, I reached out, and I was like, that's the guy. Got to have, like, want, I hope Ian's still doing great and working, because obviously, Ian, with that kind of body of work, you've earned a retirement when you have refused to do so, right? And then that's when I reached out, and Mark, you were the you're the man who's handling the artwork for Ian, which is great. So that's when I reached out.
Yeah, so I've put in there in inverted commas a quote from the email that you sent from to us when you reached out for the first time. I'm heading a project that is in need of I'm heading a project that is in need of beautiful painted artwork of a futuristic aircraft / spacecraft. The design is currently under development and not yet finalized, but should be ready in the next few months. And so both me and Ian looked at what was being asked and was like, yeah, well, Ian is taking commissions, and if it's a futuristic aircraft and spacecraft, that sounds right in Ian's wheelhouse. And as you've seen in these other images here below, there's one of this crazy Tiger Force style jet from Ring Raiders, and on the right a more recent piece that was done in the last few years as a private commission with a spacecraft from Robobusters, relating to the precursor to the ABC Warriors in the pages of 2000 AD. And so yeah, right in Ian's wheelhouse, and then so we sort of sat back and waited to find out more, and then you sort of sent across some briefing, some of the early kind of concept art to us, and I replied and said, that looks an awful lot like a Roboskull. And you were probably, your mind was probably a little bit blown, sort of, how does this random guy representing this comic book artist, how does he recognize something that is so specific? So sort of fortunately or coincidentally, but also giving rise to probably a bit of shock for you, you contacted a guy who knows an awful lot about Action Force.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think any design that's a spaceship with a skull on it is going to evoke feelings of that, right? So it's I wasn't terribly surprised, but I was surprised.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And then, and I don't even remember how long that first email I reached out, just because I was so excited, and it was very early in the process, but I knew that's what I had to, what I wanted for the project. And then you guys waited very patiently while we continued to develop, because it was a long time. And I kept saying, guys, just don't worry. We're going to get there. It's just, we gotta wait till the design is finished. Right.
Yeah. And I had to keep on reminding Ian, don't start. Hold on. Wait till it's.
Things like that. There always is be a period of gestation, which we've just got to, as just the artist, for instance, just have to sit back and wait until the finer points are sorted out and finalized, and then we can take it from there.
I want to quickly check on my phone and see.
And perhaps now and again, be responsible for my own little tweak here and there that might just be attractive to the editor or the manufacturer, the toy manufacturer, like yourself, Ben.
I was just trying to look back on my phone and find out when was that very first image. When was the very first email? And it was the 14th of April 2020. So,
so a year and a half ago. Yeah.
we've been talking a fair while, and I've been chomping at the bit to want to talk to other people about it as well. But
year and a half. Yeah,
I kept it. Kept it under my hat all this time.
I appreciate that. We definitely kept it. We kept it on the down low until we were ready, didn't we?
Yeah, incredibly, given the amount of enthusiasm that this project has generated. So next up, this next piece was Ian's very first initial sketch, and it was after I shared some materials of him based on the original Roboskull, and I sent across the original commercial to kind of show it in action and kind of the concept of these, VTOL wings. And so yeah, this was Ian coming up with some initial ideas as to the composition and the potential ideas for background as well.
Right, which was great because you guys were so, Mark, you guys were obviously so excited. I didn't have our designs to you guys because this, so you guys just went ahead and sketched something else that was similar just to kind of start composing to get out in front of
just
it.
generating ideas, and particularly trying to understand the concept of this thing, but also where we might place the Roboskull and the background. That was kind of the thing that generated the most ideas, almost like, is it going to be in space? Is it going to be somewhere in the sky? And Ian, do you remember this initial concept? You were sort of playing with this sort of, I can't remember the word you use now, but it's like a kaleidoscope type effect in the background that you were playing with the idea.
Sorry, you were speaking to me then, Mark.
Yeah, I was saying that your original idea for the background was kind of like less, I guess, representative and more of a kind of almost color kind of kaleidoscope idea.
Yes. At that stage, Ben had supplied me obviously with a rough idea of the shape of this wonderful character, shall we say. And I didn't really, there was nothing I could do with it other than just try to portray it and then just let my own imagination run freely round about it, introducing shapes, etc. With in the background, quite often when I'm working away, as you can see, I work away in black and white to start with, massing in the shapes, etc. The color comes it's probably floating around in the wee back corners of my mind while I'm doing this. But very often, quite often, I find myself, especially because I've worked so much in colour over the years now, that the grave danger is of things starting to look rather similar to what that was done, say, perhaps a few months ago. So very often, I have to do the black and white section first and lay it aside and allow the colour bit to perhaps just gradually what's the word can you it just starts moving around in my mind, and all sorts of silly ideas come into my mind as to colour. Colour, of course, it is a problem. Colour, everyone thinks, oh, colour, oh yes, colour, red, white, and blue, etc. But you've got, when you're using colour, you've also got to remember that colours have temperatures. You have warm colours and you have cold colours. So in order to use them effectively, you've got to juxtapose cold colours with red colours in order to get the effects that you would like to put over.
That's one of the things that jumps out at everyone, right? You can't see one of your paintings without thinking about the beauty of the color selections. It's just one of the many facets of your work that just really it just stands out.
Yes, it's a very instinctive thing, Ben, to be quite honest, and probably has also, how can I put it, matured over the years through experience as much as anything. But I still find, even now, I still do the odd cover for Commando in this part of the world, and even now I'm still always trying to, how can I put it, um, change the formula, the color formula, as much as possible. Use, I don't, for instance, ever use any more than the primary colors, the four: red, yellow, green, red, yellow, and blue. And from these, you can get all the color you wish. Um, of course, acrylic colors are absolutely wonderful in that they have a vibrancy which, for instance, watercolor it lacks, just doesn't have. And I find that acrylic colors, especially, they seem to they just are natural twins to good reproduction. If you understand where I'm coming from, that today's reproduction is so wonderful compared with what I was used to as a boy when we started doing colored work way back. So it's a wonderful feeling to look at a finished piece of a finished publication and to notice that even the subtle changes I try to put into my use of color, they actually are coming up, printed up, more or less exactly the way I want to see them. That's very satisfactory. Very satisfactory.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
used
that's
to
a
be
really
quite
good point. Yeah.
used to be quite a problem for painted art, even relatively recently, of being able to capture the vibrancy of the painted image, and often it looked a lot sort of more muddy compared to the way that it was actually appeared on the board. And yeah, I know from stories about 2000 AD that sometimes the editorial had a bit of a job to convince their painters to understand the concept of what how things appear on the board versus how it will appear in print. Okay, the next up we've got I think an exclusive, Ben. This
Yeah.
is some
Behind the scenes you're revealing here of concepting that we were looking at. Yeah.
So this was kind of very early in the process, giving Ian a much clearer view of as to what the Roboskull 2 would be looking like, and could kind of help with then sort of roughing out the ideas as to what would the painting would eventually become. Do you wanna let us know a little bit more about what we've got on the screen at the moment?
Yeah, sure. So so the images on the right, I guess I'll start with those. So those are concept drawings by Alex Wu. So he was the concept artist that we brought in to work on the project at the recommendation of Dave Proctor, who Dave Proctor is a good friend of mine, and he's also the man behind the production of many of the toys in our hobby, like Boss Fight Studio, like the Marauders, Valor versus Action Force, just a lot of the toys that are in the circles I run in that I collect. He's in Hong Kong, and he's making sure these toys get made, and they get made to the top quality specifications. So he then because I was working with him on the production side of it, he in the whole concept, and he recommended Alex. And Alex is based in Hong Kong, works closely with Dave, and then Alex is amazing. Like, he's like a genius. He's just the ideas coming out of his head were just super like heavy metal, awesome concepting. And so we refined those. And then the image on the right actually is a fairly good, that was a fairly developed concept drawing at that point, of where, after many, many refinements of what we wanted this to look like. So that's a pretty developed concept drawing. The one on the left is just a really rough, actually that one probably came a little bit earlier, because you can see the older kind of wing style that we were playing with.
It's a slightly different shape, isn't it?
Yeah. So that actually was I did that in the wrong order, because the one on the left is actually an earlier version, and that was just a really rough in of a 3D model, kind of to get more of try to get a 3D feel of just how this thing might look when it's all flared out with its talons open in the kind of the attack formation, right? Yeah. So that's what we're looking at here, and it was fun, because we got so much concept art, which, by the way, I'm personally really, as a collector and a fan, I'm really into pre-production art. And I've collected pre-production art for my favorite character from G.I. Joe, and I'm really fascinated with the process. So to go through this as on the other side of it as being a producer made just everything that much more. I mean, it's just so much fun. You guys probably remember, Mark, I'm sure you will, that at the beginning of this for the commission, I said, but I want all the sketches. I want all the pre-production. Like, I want all of it. And you're like, Ian keeps all that in his book. And I said, well, no, I really want it. And I think we ended up where I got most of it, but Ian kept a piece or two for himself still. So it all worked out for everybody, for both of us.
Yeah. Cool. And so Ian sort of does most of his sort of roughs in a personal sketchbook, which he keeps hold of. And I guess, Ian, it's a nice memento for you, where you're sort of giving away the finished product, but you've got kind of this record of everything that you've been working on over the period of a few months.
Yes, I must admit, Ben, when I got these sketches, a lot more than sketches, these dramatic drawings, technical drawings that you sent me to work from. I must admit that I had to sit back and get my breath back. Shall we say?
Sorry, I didn't catch that. Ian, apologies.
I mean, as you well know, I've drawn and painted aircraft for all my life. In that, let's face it, I didn't want to be doing this anyway. I wanted to fly as a career, but it wasn't to be. However, when I was faced with these quite wonderful, as I say, technical drawings, I had to sit down, and especially the two on the right, I had to sit down and somehow or other, with the rather illogical organ I call a brain, I had to sit down and try and, in a way, how could I put it? Take bits out here and bits out there, translate. I suppose the word I'm trying to think of is translate them into something I could work from. Eventually, I think we managed it, but it was, I've got to say, in my many years of experience, it's probably been as tricky an exercise as I've come across, shall we say.
Wow, that's
But
really interesting, Ian. I didn't know that you felt that it was that was at that level for you, because you know, what we saw and what we got was so fantastic. You were clearly up for that challenge. So well done, sir.
thank you.
And this next image is kind of the idea sort of finally coming to life with the new with a rough based on those early designs, and trying to come up really with the composition, the angle of the Roboskull, and potentially where it might be sitting in space. And I think originally this was yeah, I can't remember which version this was. What we were thinking that that background actually was, whether that was going to be Earth or another alien planet or something. I think
Right.
that might have been before. It might have been a different planet, and then we evolved quickly into this, which is getting much closer then to the final version that we'll recognize, and that's kind of more of the moon surface sitting behind it, with like sort of a planet not unlike Saturn with some rings behind, and there was a bit of to and fro as to you know where you wanted it situated. I think you landed on it wanting a bit more of an Earth-like planet in the background.
Yeah,
do you remember
definitely.
that thought process?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we looked at that from a lot of different ways, and a few details here. I guess if you back up one, I've got a comment on that too. I love this piece, and to me, this is always going to be this is Ian's. You know, this is Ian. I feel like this is Ian's design, because he just looked at it and did a sketch, and then it was just a really cool. I mean, it's so good looking, but it's like the Ian Kennedy version of the design. So I just love this piece so much. And then the next piece that was developed further, one of the details you'll see at the bottom is a second Roboskull kind of concept in the distance, and that was by request of Ian to say, like, look, the Roboskull Mark II you could have a fleet of these, so I want to make sure that we kind of communicate that in a way. Obviously, the focus is on this big, beautiful design, but we're going to imply that we want to be able to imply in this packaging art that you could have many Roboskulls. So that's there. And then so this is kind of what when we were all talking together back and forth. We were talking about moons or Earth-like planets, and I think we settled. I mean, I think ultimately I decided I really wanted just more of the Earth-like planets to get more color. I mean, because that's one of the things that I think everyone's drawn to in your work, Ian, is the use of color. And then beyond that, this process, we kind of had the moon or the planet in the corner, and it was actually Ian's suggestion that he's like, this isn't quite working. I think we need to put the planet directly behind the craft, so that way we get a higher contrast with these colors and these wings. So thank you, Mark. So there it is. So this is Ian's. After that development, he came back and said, this is a better composition for what we need to achieve given the colors of the Roboskull Mark II. So and so that was, and I said, great, that's awesome. Like, how amazing is it to get Ian Kennedy to tell you like how to properly compose an artwork for color and composition. I mean, just amazing, just good times.
Yes, Ben. Here you actually see my thought processes in action. These last three stages that we've seen. If you want to go back through them, if you can, Mark, at all, you'll see how my as I said earlier, a form of translation. And I can see that my mind is working along certain lines, and each there is a distinct step at each stage. As far as background, etc. is concerned. Translation, I suppose, is possibly as good a way of describing it as any, until we get to the finished article, so to speak.
Absolutely. And I loved it. I loved every minute of that process.
And what I get the thrill of experiencing is that when Ian's faced with these sort of the prickly issue of trying to kind of translate a concept into a piece. Often I'll ping across the email to Ian, and then at some point in the wee early hours of the morning, Ian will have been thinking about it and have come up with something. Every now and again overnight, and I'll have something to look at in the morning, and it's always a real thrill to see. It's
Yes.
Is it the late night thinking, Ian? It's a sweet spot for your creativity?
Very much later, not so much late night, early morning. Very often. I'm a very bad sleeper. So very often the work I'm working, the job I'm working on at that time can be lying quite close by, so that when I open my eyes and just glance across, it's quite often the case that all of a sudden what seemed to be a problem the evening before was no longer a problem. It was the problem. The solution was there. It just I possibly just maybe just a wee bit too tired to recognise that there really wasn't a problem, that we were already working along the right lines.
It's great how I think a lot of really creative people. It's fun. It's interesting how consistent that seems to be with many creative people, that they get good ideas either like late at night or early in the morning, kind of in that sleep state in between. How you just think a different way. I definitely have those kind of the shower thoughts, eureka moments early in the morning when I'm still kind of in between and not fully woken up.
So this is a quite late on in the process. It was one of the it was, I think, in the pack of the kind of the final design that you supplied to Ian to work on the final piece. And I think this angle that you worked up your model was to effectively to try and recreate what Ian had previously roughed out in a 3D model format, essentially.
Yeah, so that's absolutely correct. So we took what Ian wanted to do, and from a composition standpoint, and then tried to recreate it in 3D, because again, there is, in this product design, we've got there's a lot going on here. To Ian's point, very fair, Ian, there's a lot happening. So so this was just I think it hopefully was a helpful tool for Ian to really to get the details, because as much, this is one of those things as far as artistic interpretation goes, that I love seeing art and artists translation, like Ian was saying earlier, of the product and of a design, right? But given that this was a packaging art for the toy, then we had to sort of hone in a little bit more from translation to try to achieve more of a beautiful, more accurate representation of the toy for the final art, given that it was packaging art.
Yeah.
Yes. As we go through, I find that from time to time, I will notice a particular panel is possibly just a wee bit too bright, too light, or too dark. So I will alter that in order to get the effect I want. And of course, this subject had so many panels and shapes that I had to be extremely careful as to just how heavy, for instance, some of those translucent blue-grey panels. I could have made them. I could have made them um, quite bright and almost glassy. You know, if you understand what I'm on about.
Mhm.
But decided no, I would keep them matte.
So what we've got on the screen now is Ian's first pass for review at the painted Roboskull. So most of the elements are there, and beautifully framed by the blue of the planet in the background. I guess, Ian, this is your signature acrylic style in operation, isn't it? Where you're
Very much.
layering up the acrylic paints, and often breaking out the hairdryer to speed up the process, right?
Yes, very much so. A very useful tool. Yes, no, I'm a great believer in starting off quite gently and delicately with my colours, and then gradually working them up until I get them to the depths and brilliance, for instance, that I want. But it's almost, at times I wonder whether it is art or is it maybe a technical process almost rather than art.
That's an interesting thought. That's an interesting thought there, Ian. I think that's the blending of art when you can start breaking down, right, like what is it that makes it that looks good on a technical cognitive level, right? You can kind of start breaking things down, what works, like you were saying earlier about colors and matching, and it can become very cognitive, like understanding like this is what works good. We don't know why, but but it's visually pleasing. But then still at the end of the day, you can be cognitively understand all this stuff so well. I've got a little bit of cognitive understanding of what makes a beautiful painting, but I certainly don't have the creativity or the talent to pull it off. I mean, look at this. Look at this. I mean, it's just gorgeous. It's absolutely stunning. And in the color composition here, again, this was entirely driven by Ian. The colors, this beautiful, rich, kind of dark, and then brightening to these. And again, you can't even translate as much as the replication of. We were talking about the replication now and how the colors come through so beautifully. It looks beautiful here, but as someone who's got the actual painting in my house right now, the colors are just unbelievable. They're just gorgeous and so rich, and we're certainly going to be spending a lot of time to replicate that color on the packaging art, so that way, so we get all that transition of color across this piece. To translate on the packaging art for everybody else to enjoy. But the color itself was entirely Ian. I mean, this was his selection, not mine. And I mean, how, if you get an opportunity to have someone with like Ian Kennedy to tell you how to put the colors together, you just sit back and listen and say, sir, that's what we'll do.
Yes, it is no doubt about it. It is a process, and that's why, as I say, I often wonder whether or not I'm a manipulator of color rather than an artist in the true sense of the word. In that I've been using acrylics now since around 1970 when they had. That was around the time they hit the market, and folks became aware of acrylic colours. And I can guarantee you now, I still find after all that time, I can find myself actually experimenting with acrylics and pushing the boundaries out even further.
Well, Ian, that's an interesting thought, but I would have to say I wouldn't wonder in which way or the other. If any, you're certainly both, right? If you're a manipulator of color, you are a master manipulator of colors, and you are an artist. You are an artist in the truest sense of the word. There can be no doubt about that from anybody.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, so next up, we have here a true sense of Ben's attention to and I guess the wider project here, their attention to detail and professionalism, I'd say, in terms of playing back your feedback. Always very considered, detailed. Provided in a very clear way and with sort of supporting images and direction, so that there's no kind of there's no misinterpreting of what you're after. So we've got some technical revisions to that first draft of having eye cannons, the detail on the chin plate armor, and so on, and creating more of a kind of a halo area. Actually, the earth roundness is how you demonstrated it, but I think Ian came up with his own solutions to make that aspect look even better, and also some notes around wing transparency, which I remember there was quite the artistic challenge to achieve that as well. Ian.
Right.
So there we see it all coming together. The Earth has got this wonderful kind of halo effect being added to it, which I know took a little bit of extra time, Ian, but really does add something quite spectacular to the image.
Yes, because originally when I did it, it was quite a clean edge, but you were quite strong in your request that should be softened, and well, after all, I'm just a laborer. You're the boss.
Yeah, I mean,
so I had to do as I'm told.
How do you feel about it now, Ian? Do you feel like we shouldn't have? I mean, these are subtle details. So how do you feel about that? Do you feel like we shouldn't have put the bright ring around it?
I think it improved it without any shadow. I'm quite willing.
Good.
I know. One thing all these years have taught me. I do know when I'm wrong.
Oh, that's good, because I always, that was the one comment I've actually, because I said, hey, we looked at all the, all your Dan Dare and your planets, and it's like a lot of those had the kind of that glow on it, and so that was like, hey, can we, we think that looks cool, but we don't want to step out of bounds here if it's not the right direction. So so I'm really glad that you feel that it ended up being a good design direction. Really, that was one of the only few things that we talked about, other than some of the technical things that we just went over.
Mm-hmm.
And even the blasts here, like the orange blasts, like the decision that the two cannons are firing up top and they're orange, and then that we've got kind of this cool blue-green laser effect on the chin guns. Like that's all Ian. Like there was no direction on how that was going to work at all. That was just entirely, Ian doing his thing. And it's just the composition of it, because you could go, this thing's got so many guns. You could have overdone it. We certainly don't want to underdo the blast. So, I mean, Ian picked this, and the balance is just perfect.
I'm a great believer in not just, as obviously we've been talking all the time about my use of color, etc., but in the composition, angles, like lines of the laser, for instance, lines, etc. These are all equally important.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to say, I think I don't remember, Ben, and you might remember differently. I don't remember you necessarily spelling out to Ian how you wanted to see this second Roboskull either. So I think this is a bottom-up view of it, which is,
Right.
I guess, a surprising angle to see it.
Yeah.
What's your recollection of that, Ian? Was that all you, or was there a bit of an instruction about how we wanted to see that second craft? It feels like it was a tough decision. Not making it easy on yourself.
Yeah, my recollection is that I'd asked that we have a second craft, of course, and I think the conversation was, let's show it in a different angle than what the primary is, so that it gives you more of what, because this thing looks, I mean, I'm biased, but this thing looks badass from every point of view. Like, this thing is designed to just look great. It looks great no matter what. Underneath, over top, from behind, she's a beauty. She's a terrible beast. And so I think that was a
I personally felt, Ben, that there was no question it was such an interesting shape that it deserved to be shown from a different angle, to show the buyer, the reader, or whatever, that what we're seeing here in the main image, it must, we're adding more interest, haven't we, by showing it in a totally different angle altogether.
I think
apart from anything else, quite often to an empty space to an artist could be a bit of anathema. Is that a proper word?
Well, you placed everything perfectly, and obviously you even considered the fact that we were gonna, as packaging art, we would have something across the top as a headline, and there it is. So you gave us plenty of space. You know, there's a great that one's sized for, you know, put that on Instagram. I think, Mark, you probably pulled that off of, right?
Right, yep.
But yeah, we've got plenty of room to add our graphics. So it's just absolutely beautiful. And, you know, and going back to the, you know, Mark, if you can zoom up on that second ship, I mean, it's just gorgeous. It's a work. The second ship in the background it's an entire work of art, you know, in and of itself to me. I mean, genuinely, I'm not, like, it's beautiful. Even when we were looking at marketing, I actually did that for an Instagram story, right? Where I start out and you just see that ship and then it comes over, right? Because I'm just if you can't tell, I'm really enamored with the entire piece.
Because one thing we've not actually mentioned today is the scale of this piece. So most comic book art is done at what in UK is close to A3 side, like a comic Bristol board, and Ian will sort of work at something akin to this kind of scale for most of you know, his sort of painted, almost cover quality pieces. But this piece is a beast. It's like A2 scale, right? So it's ginormous.
It's the big guy, and I think you know, that was part of our early, when we started getting into it. My recollection, Mark, is that you asked me, you're like, hey, here's the price point for this size, and of course I have to, by the way, I don't deal with A2 and A3, so then I've got my, you know, I'm like had to convert everything here, you know, from you Brits, the way you're explaining it to me, to understand the sizing that of the product. And you sort of were like, here's the price for this one, and this is the typical, or, you know, it's going to be more money, but you could go really big, and that might be really nice. I think you weren't.
That's what we call the stretch tier.
Yeah, and I'm like, so like, you like, give me the big one. Let's go.
Because Ian, maybe you can talk to this a bit, but the A2 scale just means that it's literally a bigger canvas to work on, such that you can fit in more detail, and then when it's reproduced, and scaled down, it just looks that much more detailed and richer. How does it compare working at such a that kind of scale?
To be quite honest, if if I'm if I'm honest, I would say I like working to a bigger scale, because quite often you're asked to do something as small as A4 or A3, when and you just can't do it justice. Whereas doing it at A3 or A2, I can't recall. I have in the past worked A1, but A2 for a subject like this, I would say is just about ideal, because it means I can uh, spread myself, shall I say, just let myself go a bit more, rather than be um, legally working away in little corners. Let the whole thing flow.
And I had as we're kind of wrapping up our discussion around this particular piece, Ben, you're the proud owner of the original piece now for this. Have you got it to hand somewhere, or is it out of the way?
I have the piece. It's been sitting in my home office the entire time while we're working on it. So it's just sort of right there as an inspirational piece that really, I mean, I kind of did this piece early, right? Like, I was so excited about the packaging art that I actually pulled the trigger on it a little bit too early, because we did have one revision. We've got like slight details, like the eye cannons have changed a little bit from this piece. And so, but this was sort of like, this kind of became the standard for the project. I showed this to the team and everyone's just like, oh my God, like, it really started to make things feel more real from these concept drawings, and just really raised the bar for all of us, but of the direction that we were headed. So it was an anchor genuinely, this became kind of an anchor piece for the direction and the quality. I mean, of course we were going to do everything top quality, but it was just really good to have this anchor piece right there, looking at me every day as we continued to work to build the new product. So it's in my office. It'll get reframed soon, and find a very prominent place in my personal collection. So it's really just a dream come true to be able to not only have a piece that's commissioned for a project like this, but then for me to also get to enjoy the original myself every day. It's just so, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
Excellent. And so let's as we're wrapping up about talking about the piece, it's I think we should mention the wider project. So it went live last week, was has been incredibly successful. You got your initial target in first hour and a half, and you've been rapidly releasing some of the additional tiers that were previously locked. So massive congratulations, and clearly it's a project that everyone, that an enormous amount of people are very passionate, enthused by. So you've really tapped into the imagination of a base of people there who are fans for this concept.
Thank you, Mark. It's been a crazy couple of days, honestly, because we built out the 6 stretch goals, and my hope was, my big hope is that at the end of the 30 days, we would be able to pull in and get that last final 6th stretch goal unlocked. That was my hope. I wasn't, you just don't, I mean, I've never done a Kickstarter before, but I did a lot of research, and I felt like I had a good grasp. I believed in the product. I believed in the quality of the product, and I believed we would fund, but to unlock all those, to unlock the 6 stretch goals for me going into it, I was feeling like that would be that would just be, an amazing thing if by the end of the campaign we could unlock all 6 of those stretch goals. And then for that to happen in like 94 minutes or something, we funded and then burned through, and we funded in 94 minutes and then burned through all 6 of the stretch goals that I expected to go to fuel this 30 days. We burned through all 6 of them in 21 hours. So I felt like I ran the whole 30 days in less than a day. Like it was all condensed into a single day. And thank you for everyone who's funded us. Oh, I just can't, the support and the positive energy coming from everybody online. It's just wonderful. So it's just been so much fun, and we really appreciate the comments about that people are making about the thoughtfulness that we put into this. I really appreciate it, because we really thought hard about how we can make a product that that's the best. I mean, that's what it was all about. That's why Ian Kenny was the only guy on the list for the packaging art for me. It's about doing everything the very, very best. And we rethought and thought and revised, and the reaction from the fan base has been more than I could have ever expected. So thank you to all the Roboskullers out there. And that left me kind of like immediately going, oh my gosh, I thought I was gonna. What's next? We have to keep building this out. Like this is exceeded my wildest expectations. And so we've actually been taking ideas that we had that didn't make that cut, and really developing them really quickly and trying to get that out so we can keep showing our appreciation for all these backers, and keep getting really, really cool stuff. So we're scrambling, but we're not putting out things that are not well thought out. We're digging into the concepts that, like the Robo Knight heavy metal armor was one that just unlocked at, yesterday, I think it was. It's all running together, but that's a really fun concept that completely transforms the feel of the product. And it just didn't quite make I didn't think we were going to be able to get there or do it. So to be able to put that in and then have it fund and just keep adding awesome stuff it's a dream come true. And with that, Mark, I'm actually going to bring something up as we continue to try to build rewards and enhance the value of this whole campaign. With the level of funding we've now achieved, I would like to invite Ian to do a couple portraits for us and to add to his packaging art, and do a Blood Wolf portrait and to do a Weasel Pilot portrait that would then go on the box art for the packaging. So if and I'm springing this on both of you. So if that's something that Ian, if you'd like to do, I'd like to have you do the portraits and add that and enhance the box art for the Roboskull Mark II.
Well, certainly, always up for the challenge, Ben. Always up for the challenge.
All right.
Wow.
For anybody watching, that's a reveal right now that we're going to have some additional Ian Kennedy art. You heard it here first. So
that's going to be exciting. And I've just called up the page. So for everybody who's been hiding away the last few days, the website is kickstarter.com/projects/Skeletron/Roboskull. Just Google Kickstarter Roboskull, you'll find it, and all of the details are there. Tantalizingly, I'm showing it here in pounds.
Yeah.
So that probably less recognizable to you, but it's at 274 at the moment. Tantalizingly very close to 200,000.
I love that you just showed that in pounds, because I'm over here in the US and we're looking at US dollars. So look at that. We're about to hit an appropriately huge milestone in pounds. So that's really exciting.
There is the art, the figures, all of the details, that amazing amazing special edition with the wild yellow. Who's that guy?
Does that guy look happy? So a little story about that. That was a candid photo. We received the model prototype from Hong Kong, and David had actually asked me to do an unboxing so he could see the look on my face when I got this. He's like, you're not even ready. You've been working on this project for 2.5 years, and you're not even ready for what's going to come in this box. And so that's somebody grabbing a pic of me, pulling this out and assembling it and seeing it and holding it for the very first time. That's what you're seeing right there. What
a moment. That expression on your face does look like, as you say, a genuine moment of happiness. Yeah, I can only imagine how that would have felt at the time after all of your hard work to get to that point. Very, very exciting. So yeah, that's the place for everyone to go find out more. I thought what we'd do next is a quick fire round, looking at some of the other Action Force art that Ian has been working away at over the last few months, because so a lot of people have been in the same kind of brain space as you, Ben, that Ian is the classic boys comics artist. People want to see his interpretation of the Action Force property. So let's have a look at some of the ones that have been worked over the last few months. So we'll start off here with mine. So this was a request for Ian to interpret the cover to G.I. Joe issue 4 with his own take on it, and also fix some of the things that I didn't like about the cover, namely the beret on the lead character and some of these things. So that was the pencils. This was kind of the halfway point where Ian will often work at the full scale pencils, inks, and before overlaying the colors on top. And there's the final glorious piece, which I have got in front of me as we speak. So let's
stunning, absolutely amazing. Stunning.
And it's done on this hard artboard, which it's got a very lovely tactile quality to it as well, Ian. So that's a preferred, I guess, would you call it a medium in terms of the surface that you're working on?
Yes, it's a line and washboard really I work on most of the time, with a what they call a knot surface. It has a nice textured surface, which gives it a nice texture.
And I guess you don't have to worry so much about the paper warping with the paint being applied to it.
I haven't used that. No, it keeps nice and straight, nice and firm, and no problems whatsoever.
Okay, so that was my big commission. Here's a red shadow, famously the villain of the initial Action Force era. Their troopers. That was a black and white piece. So the initial prelim, and then the finished piece. And with a trademarked Ian Kennedy color splash bit behind the image, just to really make it pop.
Very nice.
Ian, what's in it for a piece like this? What do you typically use for that color splash? What
that again is acrylic color.
Okay.
Acrylic color used in the watercolor manner. Just water it down with water and just use it as it was.
Yeah, because often you think about the acrylics of being what's the right word?
I'm just wondering about this. Sometimes I think that's paint, looking at it, but I have lately been quite enjoying using colored pencils to get the same sort of effect In fact, one can get a really nice texture using coloured pencils. All very kiddie stuff when you think on it.
Okay, and here was quite a recent one, which I think may have been inspired by an early sight of some of the work on the Roboskull project, Ben. So this is Stalker from Action Force, based on the Snake Eyes Commando model, with the Panther Jeep, and this was the prelim, and then the finished black and white piece.
Beautiful.
Looking, very impressive. And I think the initial kind of quote or ask was for the figure with maybe a hint of the vehicle behind it or something along those lines. But of course, Ian always has to go the extra mile, and so we've got the vehicle front and center there in action. This was a piece which started off as almost just like a portrait. It was to be based on the Operation Claymore story from Battle Action Force, with the SAS versus the Red Shadows and the Baron Ironblood. So it started off with a very sort of simple idea of the SAS leader, with maybe that image of Baron Ironblood in the background, and it sort of progressed to a much more ambitious kind of piece, as we can see here in this next rough. It's a veritable army of SAS troopers against the Red Shadows, who were dressed in that period costume. Then a progression of the idea into then the final painted piece, where we've got Eagle, the SAS leader, and a mixture of the Red Shadows, and the Red Shadows in historical garb, with their leader in the background looming large with that sword behind him. Do you have any memories, strong memories of working on this one, Ian? It wasn't. It was, I guess, almost 2 years ago, probably.
It's some time ago now. No, it worked out quite well. Not absolutely happy about the rather sudden cut off of the main figure up above. I think, on reflection, I could have allowed that main figure to have merged more into the background, more gradually, rather than the rather sudden way it does. But then it's never a good idea to see something too soon, because you're always a bit you'll always find something that you can do.
You can only see the things that you would do differently, rather than just enjoy it. Yeah. And I guess this image is, I guess, representative of when we see a new piece from you, Ian, that we're not always going to get necessarily the color choices that you would expect, or sort of the more representative ones. So we've got some beautiful kind of pinks and oranges here in the foreground, which just make it a much more rich image, I'd say.
It's beautiful. I think you nailed it, Ian. I wouldn't think twice about making a revision to that beauty.
Okay, I was going to finish off the final one from these slides, and then let's jump into that. So this was in my personal sketchbook, which I sent off in the post to you, Ian, and crossed every finger that Royal Mail would deliver it and not lose it. So this was a Cobra Rattler, and this was your initial rough, followed up by the full color painted Cobra Rattler, which is only at what I would call A4 size, so sort of letter paper in US kind of language. And beautifully done at that scale, with sort of these lovely little hints at all of the detail going on inside the cockpit, and it was a great lockdown treat for me, Ian. Very privileged. Excellent.
Awesome.
So I think that wraps up our chat. So a big thank you to Ian for taking the time this Sunday evening as we're recording to sort of walk us through the process of producing that amazing Roboskull painting for Ben's project. And Ben, thank you for taking the time as well, and your sort of, you know, all of the hard work that's finally paying off with this project that's, you know, finally seen the light.
We finally unveiled it. I told you guys the day would come, and appreciate both you and Ian being in the know so early. So you had to wait longer than most for this to come to fruition. So thank you both. Thank you for having me on the show. It was really fun to kind of go back through and think and remember just the process we went through on the whole thing. So that was great. Thank you. And hopefully, you know, as we continue to watch. Speaking
for myself, it's been great being involved in a project that has obviously become so successful. I wish it all the best.
Thank you, Ian. That means so much. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and you guys were professional and awesome at every step of the way. I couldn't have possibly had more fun going through that process. Everything was just perfect.
Great.
Brilliant. So I think we'll leave it there, and
Right.
Thank you guys, and thank you to the listeners. And as always, we've been Talking Joe, and we'll see you next time. Laters.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Cheers, everyone. All the best. Bye now. Bye.
How are we looking on British pounds? Did we get the 200 while we were talking?
While we were talking, crikey, I've closed that window now. Where have you got to? Drum roll. How much is pledged? Yes, you have.
Hey!
You did it. Cool.
200,000 pounds. That's pretty amazing.
That is astonishing.
I like that. That's good. That's great.